Playing golf on a windy day can certainly add a challenging element to the sport, and I think one of the winds that golfers fear the most is probably that headwind, standing on the tee or on the fairway with a draft coming straight off the flag and into the golfer's face. And I think a lot of golfers misunderstand the challenge that that wind poses and don't actually make the correct decisions about playing the shot. I think one of the first things you should do is consider how strong the wind is and the direction it's coming from. So little bend down, grab a few blades of grass, throw the grass up in the air and see what the wind's doing. Now today it's doing nothing for me, so I'm using my imagination about the crosswind, but if I'd thrown that up in the air and the wind had blown back towards the camera, then clearly that would have been straight into a headwind and I would need to do something to react to that. Now, in terms of how much that wind is blowing, it's much more about just trial and error. You know, get to the practice ground or the golf course when you're playing in windy days, measure your stock yardage that you might have with a 7-iron that you know 7-iron goes 150, hit a few shots into a headwind, 7-iron goes 140 into a headwind. On a really strong day, it goes 130. There isn't a hard and fast calculation that a golfer can work out on the golf course because we're not allowed to measure the wind speed. It has to just be a bit of trial and error. But understand that into a reasonable wind, you will definitely be losing a lot of yardage. And I think the point here is most club golfers massively underestimate how much that yardage is lost. So if I've got a 7-iron on a breezy day, it's probably going to need to be a 6-iron to go the same distance. And I think a lot of golfers would just feel that headwind and go, I'll take my 7 and I'll hit it harder. Problem is when you hit that 7-iron harder, what you actually do is create a little bit more backspin, a little bit more height. Therefore the wind has more of effect on the ball and you'll gain very little yardage, sometimes even lose yardage by trying to hit it harder. What we'd often encourage in that headwind is go up a club to at least a 6 and swing nice and smooth. That keeps the ball flight down a bit, keeps the ball moving forwards. That's a breezy day. Now on a windy day, that might be 2 clubs, and if you get one of those days that's quite a strong wind and the flag's starting to bend a little bit, that could either be 3 or 4 clubs extra. Now that feels really strange to golfers, to be standing at 150 yards away with a 5-iron or a 4-iron instead of a 7-iron. Golfers really struggle with that concept, and often we'll see them make awkward little swings where they don't really commit to hitting the shot. So we want to make sure that you're changing the club appropriately to hit that good quality distance control. The next consideration, particularly to try and keep the ball flight down in that headwind, would actually be just to change your ball position slightly. So a standard 7-iron as I have here, the ball position would normally be slightly ahead of centre. But if I could play the ball slightly back of centre and keep my hands forwards here and then de-lofting the golf club slightly. By de-lofting the club, that should encourage me to hit down on the golf ball a little bit more and take the height out of the flight. So next time you're at the driving range, just consider taking a 7-iron and playing it from the front portion of your stance like a normal 7-iron. Mark how high it goes, then play one more from the back of the stance. So ball's back, hands are forwards, little low punch. The ball flight there doesn't go anywhere near as high, stays more sort of the level of those trees, and a shot like that would be less affected by the wind. So into a headwind, consider club selection, clubbing up as the wind gets stronger, and also consider ball position to bring that ball flight down so it penetrates through the wind rather than ballooning up. And hopefully considering those tips will help you improve your play next time you play into a headwind.